guys, autofanatic. I'm going to do a install and review of a new high performance brake pad that's been on my radar since I got my GT350 about a year ago. These are the Ferodo DS2500s. This is considered, for what they're claiming, to be a hybrid brake pad. Basically, they're saying it's an aggressive street pad and a track day pad. So that's really hard to believe because, you know, a street pad and a track pad, there's very rare that one could do both. That's just the way it is in my experience. So I put the XP8s in my car, the Carbotech XP8s. I think that's a phenomenal pad if you're going to go to the track, do track days, time events, whatever you're going to do. That pad blows away the factory OEM pads. But it's probably not the best pad on the street for me and for a lot of you guys, especially if you're doing a lot of stop and go traffic like myself. So I reached out to Ferodo. It was a little bit of a hassle to set up a wholesale account and buy these, but it's all set up. These are made in Italy, and like I said, they're claiming these to be low dust, low noise, ultra high performance pad. These are good to about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas the XP8 Carbotech pads are good till about 1,200, a little bit more, and then it goes up to the XP10s, XP20s. But for the most part, I'm not taking my car to the track anytime soon. And I just want a good all-around high-performance pad that could handle the repeated hard stops that I like and everything in between. And I also want to see if the dust level is going to change between the OEM pad, the Carbotechs, and these Ferodo DS25s. So do your search online. As soon as you type in GT350 Shelby brake pads, these things show up online, but there's not a lot of people talking about these pads on the GT350. So lo and behold, I spend over $400 of my own money to buy the pads, do the installation, just for my own personal feedback. I don't plan on selling these to anybody, but I like to do it for my own personal feedback. That's just my enthusiasm being involved in performance, you know, for over 20 years. I want to know what these pads are going to do. And driving and high performance and aftermarket upgrades and everything else is very subjective to every driver and what you guys want in your car. So I like to test out tires, I like to test out brakes, I like to test out everything else for my own personal use, and that's really good knowledge that you take with you forever. So with that in mind, I'm not going to show you the installation of the pads. It's pretty redundant. You just pop out the rears. The rears will take you 15 minutes. The fronts are a little bit more work. And then this time around, I'm going to DA the rotor. Whenever I do any kind of a brake swap, whether it's pads or rotors or whatever, I always do new pads and new rotors. That's just the way I am. Call me crazy, but that's just what I learned over the years, especially, you know, being in the service business. Replace everything at once and never have a client come back. Cutting rotors is really a thing of the past as far as cutting them on a brake lathe. You just don't do that on a performance car. But there is one solution that does work. There is a company that has a machine that stone grinds rotors and flywheels, and we actually had a lot of stuff done over the years, and we were looking at buying one of those machines for our old shop, but it's like, you know, over 100 grand, and to be honest with you, I don't really want to be in the rotor resurfacing business, so it just doesn't make sense. There is a guy that has that machine. He's about an hour away from me, but it's just a hassle to deal with him. But for the most part, if the rotors aren't grooved and you just want to give them a quick, light resurface, you want to have the new pads bed into the rotors. You don't want to have transferred brake material from the old pads on there. It's going to cause squeals, it's going to cause some brake shudder and everything in between. So I got a couple of tools on my table here, and I want to show you things that you can and really shouldn't use. Regular sanding block with some 80 grit. If you try to do your rotors with this, you're going to be goddamn exhausted. I don't really recommend this. A lot of mechanic shops use the 3-inch wheel here. The problem with these, they spin at such a high RPM, and you tend to scallop and gouge deep scratches into the rotor surface, and trust me, you don't really want to use this tool. You don't want to go that aggressive. If you're trying to get stuff out or grooves that are that aggressive, get new rotors or look for a place that could stone grind them so it looks like OEM again. This is my Dynabrade 3-inch DA. This is a 3/32 sander. This is what we're going to use today because my rotors don't have grooves. Just want to get the transferred brake pad material off the disc and clean up the surface. And this is my Dynafile. Don't really want to use this, but you can go around the rotor with this. But to be honest with you, there's not a lot of surface area. It's going to take you forever. So also, whenever you're doing any kind of work, grinding, cast iron, or any kind of metal, wear protection. I'm going to wear the full face shield and my respirator just because it's really not good to inhale a lot of that stuff. Just don't be lazy and always make sure you wear a respirator and some goggles if you don't have a full face shield like I do. So I'm going to move the camera around. I'm going to show you. I already got one of the rotors off the car and it's locked into my jaw horse. So guys, as you can see, I got the dual cast front Brembo rotor in my jaw horse. You can see there's some bluing on the outside and a little bit on the inside, but they're smooth. There's no grooves on this rotor at all. So I'm going to get myself set up, throw my protection gear on, and I'm going to show you what I do. So to lock it in the jaw horse, I take two 2x4s just to raise the rotor up, and it just gives it a perfect working condition. You guys, if you work on cars, you got to get a jaw horse. I use it for everything automotive and fabrication. The things are super great. It's stable. This rotor's not going anywhere. You don't really want to leave this on the floor and bend over for an hour doing it. And you're probably going to want to spend 10 minutes per rotor, about 5 minutes per side, and it really depends on how bad they are. So let me get set up, and I'll turn the camera back on, and I'll show you how we're going to do this. All right, guys, I'm actually going to use my Flex small rotary to do the rotor, just because I think it's going to make the job go a lot quicker because I'm pressed for time right now. Just doing it with the DA is just going to take way too long, and I just don't want to sit here for that much time. So here we go. And I got a 100 grit Festool sanding disc on here. You guys, I just finished one of the top front rotors. You guys can see, I'm going to zoom in, and you can see the rotor surface is perfectly clean. I got all the transfer brake material off the rotor. There's no scoring, there's no gouging. It's perfectly smooth. And then I just give it a wipe with some parts cleaner and a shop towel. So that's just a little tip, guys. Just take your time. I use these little guys here, and I use my Flex rotary tool to do it. It just seems to cut a lot quicker. If you're going to use a pneumatic tool, it's going to take you forever. I don't suggest using the 3-inch pneumatic grinders because you're going to gouge and scallop the rotor, and you're actually going to ruin it. So the rotor's perfect. We're going to bolt it on the car, and then the next time we're going to turn the camera on, we're going to be road testing it. I'm going to give you my feedback on the Ferodo DS2500. All right, guys, you can see the rotor on the driver's side. It's perfectly cleaned up. There's no grooves, no bluing, no remaining old brake pad material that's been transferred on there. Take the time, do it right, use a 3-inch to a 4-inch sanding disc between an 80 grit and a 100 grit. Use a rotary tool. You could use a DA, totally depends, but you know, like I said, these rotors are big. Cast iron grinds pretty easily. Just take your time, do it right, set it up in a jaw horse, don't do it on the floor, you're going to break your back, and that's it. That's the driver's side installed. We're going to finish it up and get the camera in the car and go for a ride. Alright guys, this is a quick drive review of the Ferodo DS2500 brake pads. Like I said in the intro, these are considered a hybrid street track pad. So far I got them on the car, and I'm going to be honest with you, I actually really like them. I think this is a great street pad. I don't know how good it's going to be as a track pad. I think I'm a little too spoiled with the Carbotech XP8s because those pads are absolutely insane, the braking that you get. So these pads, the Ferodo DS2500s, they're whisper quiet. They have very, very good initial bite. They're not as grabby and touchy as the Carbotech track pads that I had on the car, but there's a firm pedal feel. It doesn't have that long initial throw before it finally bites like the stock pads. So far so good. I really like them. I'm going to do a couple of hard stops up here, and you guys could compare if you see my Carbotech XP8 video. I mean, there's really no comparison, but I think for a street pad, if you guys have a GT350 and you're driving it on the street and you don't really want to get the OEM pads anymore for dust or whatever, I also noticed that the dusting on the Ferodo DS2500s is less, and the dust is not that rusty brown dust that you get with the OEM pads. And the same thing with the Carbotex. I guess they're using a very similar type of compound, all of these brake companies. Now the Hawk pads do give you that rusty brown dust. FYI, if you guys are going to run HP Pluses or DTCs, you're going to tend to get that, and you're also going to burn up the rotors pretty quickly. So another important step, resurface the rotors like I showed you in the intro of this video. Don't just slap pads on. You're going to get squeal, you're going to get brake shudder, and everything in between. So we're going to do a couple of hard stops, and we're going to see how we do. And there's only about 57 miles of bedding them in so far, and it's only going to get better with age. We're doing 75. Hard stop. Yeah, they stop nice. You're not going to get the ABS intervention like you will on an XP8, but believe it or not, you get it a little bit more on the Ferodo DS2500s than you do on the stock pads. Very rarely do I get the ABS to kick in on the stock pads. It just must be the way the compound is formulated not to let it happen all the time. And you guys could see that. And I haven't noticed any continuous brake fade. 40 to 0. And I feel the ABS kicking in more in the rear of the car than the front. It's 55. Yeah, the more heat that you generate in them, the better the bite is. And they feel good. They feel progressive. Has good modulation. They're not as touchy and snappy on and off like the race pads. But I gotta say, this was a good test for my own personal use, because there's not a lot of people talking about this particular pad on this particular car online. So yeah, they're good. It's a good street pad, it really is. I don't see this pad being a track pad. That's just my opinion. I don't know. I just don't think it is. I don't think it has a high enough temperature and a strong enough hard bite the way the XP8s and the XP10s do from Carbotech. But as far as an upgraded street pad, I definitely think this is a better choice than the OEM pad. 60. Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you go back to my video and you watch the XP8 video, there's no comparison between stopping power between the track pad and these pads. But you know, like I said, they're considering this a hybrid pad, which is street and track use. I don't know. I don't think these pads will handle very, very high-speed laps or handle them well, but maybe I'm wrong. If you guys have these pads on some of your high-performance cars or track cars, let me know. But hey guys, autofanatic. This is just going to be another additional commentary on the Ferodo DS2500 brake pads. I'm going to chop the video up. I didn't post this video because I wanted to put more miles on them, on these brake pads. So I have 636 miles from the initial installation till today. And I just want to give you guys a little bit more feedback. And like I said, you know, they're claiming, you know, when you look this pad up online, that it's a street track pad. And I'm going to just tell you straight out, I've been driving on these things for over 600 miles. There's no way that I would ever want these pads on my car at the track. I just don't think that they have enough bite. I don't think they have enough fade resistance. And I just don't feel that it's an ultra high performance track pad the way like a Carbotech XP8 or an XP10 or an XP20 or a Hawk DTC. I don't feel that these pads are anywhere in that same category. But I tested the Carbotech 1521s, and I've been driving on these for over 600 miles. This is an outstanding all-around street pad. There are a couple of benefits that I'll point out to you guys that may or may not be something of interest, but I think a lot of you guys especially all the emails that I get. I get hundreds of emails. Hey, I'm tired of cleaning my GT350 wheels. But the brake dust that you get with the OEM pads, because they have a lot of iron, it gives you that rusty brown dust. The pad has a very high carbon content, which creates a massive amount of dust in a short amount of period of time. So you're going to constantly keep cleaning your wheels over and over and over again. And like for me, I don't really like that rusty dust. The factory Brembo pad, I think it's a great pad. I think it's great for the street. It's most likely great for track days, probably great for autocross. It's probably not the best track pad if you're really aggressive like I am. That's why I did the Carbotech XP8 upgrade, and I played around with that. Now, something I want to make a point to you guys, I spent about $5,000 of my own money. I bought extra sets of rotors, multiple sets of pads, hours and hours of my labor in testing. I am not in the business of selling anybody rotors and brake pads. This is just what I do for my own personal experience and my own testing, because I want to know what these pads, what they're claiming to be, what they're going to do on the car with my driving style and my driving needs. So I think it's really good that I'm offering this stuff to you guys at no charge. It's free information, and I think it's great if you guys want to go out there and do a pad upgrade. If you're tired of the stock pads, you want to do a little bit something more aggressive, I suggest the XP8s if you really want to drive the car hard and do some track events and everything in between. I think they're great on the street. The biggest thing that you guys got to do, if you're going to do a pad swap, you have to clean up the rotor surfaces like I showed you in this video. If you don't do that, you're going to have noise, you're going to have brake shudder, you're going to have the steering wheel is going to be bouncing when you hit the brakes hard at high speed. It's just not something that you want to do. So I have one set of rotors, the original rotors, that are mated to the OEM pads. Then I clean them up and I put the XP8s on those. Then I have another set of rotors that I use for the 1521s. Then I clean those up. Then I put the DS2500s on those like I showed you. So you really want to do that. And I have multiple sets of rotors just because for me it's easier to do a set and clean them up and have them on the shelf and then do the swap. If I want to go swap back and forth, it's easier for the installation in downtime. Now, the most time-consuming part, if you don't have the proper tool, is going to be getting the rear parking brake cable off. I'm going to post a link to the OTC parking brake cable tool that you need. If you don't have this tool, you're going to get hurt, you're going to break something, and you're going to curse and bitch and moan and regret the fact that you tried to take the car apart to get the calipers off to change your rotors. So you got to have that tool in your bin. Fortunately, I have every tool imaginable, and if I don't have it, I go out and I buy it. That's just what it is. So overall, the DS2500 Ferodo pads compared to OEM, let's put that in comparison right now. I think they're great. I don't think they give as much bite and as much high-speed stopping power that the OEM pad's going to give you. That's from experience. That's from driving them day after day. I went on a couple of backcountry roads over the weekend. I pushed the car hard. It doesn't have the stopping power that the stock pads have or the Carbotech XP8s and so on. So the way I classify this pad is probably a great street pad. It has significantly less brake dust accumulation on your wheels than the OEM pads, than the Carbotech pads. But there's going to be a trade-off. So as far as braking performance is concerned, I'm going to probably say the Ferodo DS2500s are about a 5% decrease in stopping power on this particular car from the OEM Brembo brake pads. Okay, 5%, I mean, it's really marginal, it's not much. But what you're going to get out of that, they're quieter operation, significantly less brake dust, less time cleaning your wheels. I mean, literally, I'll show you guys when I pull over. I've got about 137 miles right now in the car, and the wheels look perfectly clean. It doesn't have that rusty brown nastiness inside the barrel and all over the spokes. And that just drives me nuts because I'm so particular in how I keep my cars. And even though I have my amazing wheel cleaner, I still don't have a lot of time to go do it 2-3 times a day because I'm in the car all day long. And some of you guys are driving these cars daily. Some of you guys aren't. So it really depends what you really wanted to do. Now, I don't suggest anybody to go out there and put a low dust carbon ceramic pad like the Hawk ceramics or even like the Carbotech 1521. I don't feel those pad compounds really are suitable for this car. I think if you're doing that, you're degrading so much of braking performance, so much pedal feel. You're going to get extended pedal travel just to have cleaner wheels. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, but I think if you want to have cleaner wheels, you want to have a lower dusting pad, you want to have a great street pad that is probably a little bit more easier to modulate and control depending on how aggressive you are on the pedal, I would say the Ferodo DS2500s is an outstanding street pad. They're marketing it online as a track and street pad. To be honest with you guys, I didn't take the car to the track on these pads, but I drove the car pretty damn hard. And I'm going to tell you now, just from stopping distances, if you look at my video, Why You Buy the Car Take 2, I went on that same road 2 days ago, and I was about 11 to 12 miles an hour slower going through those roads just because I didn't have the brakes. I didn't have the braking confidence that the Carbotech XP8s had. So that's where you really know if you do the same road over and over and you try to do it at the same speeds, you know, same driver, of course, everything's the same in the car, that's where you can kind of see if the changes you made to the car are going to increase performance, keep the performance the same, or decrease the performance slightly. So that's where I am on this. I think it's a great pad. I'm glad I used them. I mean, I'm going to keep them on the car for the time being. And most likely, I'm going to put the XP8s back in a couple of weeks when I have the time, the downtime to do it. Right now, it's just so damn hot in New York. The humidity is just brutal. I don't want to be working on my car, let alone under the car with brake dust sticking to me and everything in between. So overall, I think the Ferodo DS2500s are great. I'm not going to do hard stops in this portion of the video. I'll clip in some stops that I did the other day in the same location that I did the video of the XP8s because I hurt my neck and my back mountain biking over the weekend. So I just don't want to aggravate myself even more by snapping my neck back and forth by pounding on the car really hard. But overall, like I said, I spent the money, I spent the time, I'm doing the research and everything on all of this stuff for you guys. I highly recommend, if you want an alternative, good street pad, the Ferodo DS2500s. If you want an autocross pad, Carbotech AX6. If you want a track pad, if you're not going to be pounding on the track like crazy, XP8's front and rear. If you want to go crazy, let's say you're on VIR or you're on a really long track where you have a high straight, where you get some high speeds, you're going to want to do 20s in the front, XP10s in the back. That seems to work the best because if you have too much braking in the back, depending on your driving style, you could end up in the median or off the track if you don't know how to drive. So you don't want to have too much brake in the back, and on a new car, we don't have bias valves where we could kind of control the front and rear bias, or dual master cylinders where we could change the bore and affect also the bias with that. So you got to play around with the pad compound. Now, like I said, the OEM pads are great. I mean, you know, 90% of you guys are going to love it. You're not going to change it. But if anybody out there gets aggravated with the brake dust and, of course, with the cost of the OEM pads, the Ferodo DS2500s most likely is my suggested pad for you guys to put in. Now, if you're going to go to the track, you're going to drive a little bit harder on the street like me, Carbotech XP8s, make sure you resurface your rotors. Any questions, comments, post them below. You saw it here first. I did the testing, got the feedback to share with you guys. Go out, do your own research, spend your own money, do what you guys want, but I'm just telling you what I feel works better than what's out there. Autofanatic at yahoo.com. Hit me up if you guys got any questions.